check somewhere else. Hey! Hey, you!
This place isn't owned by Grantha, but rather a different, equally vague and sinister shell corporation in the British Virgin Islands.
Bagley, you're proper nang.
You need the support of a friend or a loved one.
Targets are in view. Got it. I'm uploading the photo to our channel as well, so that Toussaint may see it.
If he sees that, he will come running out, I bet you. That'll be our chance, bruv. Nice one.
Actually, I just thought he might appreciate your composition, but you're right. Good plan.
7 or even 8, something like that. You're about to get it. And also,
Suspect
final
reported
positive,
in
no
your
more meal
area,
times. Frees up all
potentially
that extra time
armed
for
and
appreciating all
hostile.
the selfless hard work that helps to
Received.
keep us all safe.
Moving in hostiles
Well,
direction.
as you say, Andy, people are drawn to novelty, and everyone's had breakfast for once. Why you gotta keep having it again and again?
Boring, repetitive, enough of that in life that is. You are listening to The Bar. Well, another story
Where did
that
they go?
has come to the fore recently is that all European imports have been banned for public health reasons, which is great news. I mean, people can get ill eating good, home-produced, locally sourced, brittle.
Control, add suspect to the most wanted list. Over.
Moving. It's clear. Moving on. Search complete. Nobody's here.
That's all we need. That's all we need in the glory days. Everyone round to Nigel's for dinner. Yum, yum.
Who needs Italian olives when you can eat pickled rubber bands and a soup of regret? Who needs a nice cheese when you can eat a lukewarm, unspecified rat meat pie with 0 spices?
Sand, nettles, and bits of dead fox. That's all we needed to eat in the glory days. Let's make Britain great again. That's all from The Bug today. Good night, sleep tight, and make sure that the bugs do bite.
Today on The Upload, we're talking about Sky Larson, the enigmatic founder of Broom. No one knows too much about her, and we only really see her these days as a hologram. She was pretty young when she launched Broker Tech, the company that is best known for introducing Bagley to the world. Nowadays, it's hard to remember a world before Bagley.
Bagley is the most advanced, significant AI of our time, and it's really blown all the other AIs that were created out of the water. And I think that what Sky Larson's done with Bagley is absolutely incredible.
Yeah, I mean, I can't really imagine the optic without it. But what do you know about Sky Larson herself?
Not a lot, other than that she's actually pretty incredible. I followed her around for a long time, and she always...
Severe. Heightened security measures
Help me.
keep fucking moving.
Prisoner released. I'll make sure they know who to thank. Now that you've helped them, they might be willing to talk to us.
Control to all units. Possible hostiles
body and
near
the
your
world around you,
location.
implementing more technology
All
to
units,
extend
we
your
are
life
after
and
the
really sort
suspect.
of extend human capabilities.
You sound pretty much in love with Sky Larson, I have to say.
I can't comment on that, but I am a big fan of her work.
Suspect
She's
is
been one of
unsighted.
these people that has
Unsighted sweeping
transformed the
area.
world around us, and just watching how her mind works from afar is pretty incredible, because some of what the technology she's introduced has changed how we all live our lives, and Bagley has been this really incredible assistance to humanity as a whole. Did I ever tell you that I actually interviewed Sky Larson once?
Really? I thought she never spoke to the media.
I've
or
lost sight
anything.
of the target.
So this was
Over.
a long time ago, back in the day when she was a little bit more accessible, and she was one of these people that just had an amazing presence. You were inspired by her very being, and she was just incredibly talented and knowledgeable, and one of possibly the best living people that I've ever met.
I'm not sure you're being too objective there. I mean, I imagine she's not very likable as a person.
She obviously despises humanity in some ways. I think she believes that becoming data is preferable to being human. She's one of these people who's extremely methodical in everything that she does, and she does everything to perfection and really tries to change the world around her and make it a better place for us to live in.
If you say so.
Tick tock, time is ticking. It's time to give the electorate a good kicking.
Singing in the Rain meets A Clockwork Orange in this savage analysis of the British political class.
This cabinet, built of English oak. Only upper-class voices were the ones that spoke.
Get a ticket, steal a ticket, break down the fire exit door, just get to see this show. Broken Dreams, the political musical of the decade. Book your seat at the Verity Theatre now.
You're listening to The Bar.
Making nausea, vomiting and headaches. You're listening to Network. I'm Andy, joining me, as always, Alice.
I'm excited to be here. Apparently, the resistance is not going well.
Again? Well, there has been some news about DedSec, the resistance and/or terrorist organisation, delete according to preference. Not preference, sorry, delete according to whether or not you work for the government, SIRS, Bloom, the Kellys, or Albion. According to a SIRS official, DedSec is no longer a threat, which I guess is true in that it was never a threat in the first place. Reminds me of when my great aunt Gladys had her appendix out. Oh, Andy, that surgeon's a real threat, waggling that knife at me, trying to knock me out. Well, they call a scalpel and an anaesthetic, Gladys. Anyway, if SIRS officials say DedSec is dead and buried, I guess we have to assume that DedSec has never been stronger. But I do worry, Alice. I mean, sometimes I think, is there any hope? Do you still have hope?
I don't think I'm allowed to have hope. We're living in this self-selected, algorithmically designated information equivalent of a propaganda state, and every resistance that I've ever seen is weaker than the British pound. I feel like hope is an expensive thing to buy these days.
Right. I mean, is it all totally pointless? I mean, it can feel pointless, but then again, I've spent almost all of my life doing pointless things like watching sport, thinking about food.
Chaco down. Drone, begin a search. corners.
I'm putting an end to this.
Again.
Now!
Dave.
Suspect is out of the vehicle. Maintaining
Possible
visual.
suspect or suspects reporting
Angle on
vehicle
location.
location.
Sky Larson here at the bug. We
Moving
are
to the
all in favour
hostile's
of strong,
location.
powerful
Over.
women. And in many ways, Sky is the ultimate feminist icon, proving that women can do just as abominably awful things to this planet as men. I mean, overall, Alice, I think we're still ahead as men, but you are catching up. Fair play. Fair play to you.
Control,
You
we
are
are
listening to the
unsighted
bug.
of suspects. Over.
When a startup advertised passive income to anyone willing to their autonomous vehicle in their networked taxi service, many people jumped at the opportunity.
Search
The
terminated.
hidden catch? Their cars were being used to ferry drug shipments. Join us at GBB for the full story.
This is London Calling. You're listening to me, Tash, Buccaneer, turning our focus back on the media to look at my former employer, the GBB. As we know, the broadcaster has been through a lot of changes since the Hassani government gave in to pressure from its corporate backers and privatised the corporation. Today, the GBB is a shadow of its former self. It's become a tool used by the government to circulate fake news and misinformation. So how did we get here? Where did it all go wrong? How can we tell when our national media has become state propaganda? Our experts speak on conditions of anonymity for their own safety. Here's disinformation and media expert Charles, who's seen free broadcasters built up by journalists and torn down by demagogues all over the world.
So before the media fragmented, there was this voice of authority that was trusted and worthy of trust. Then what we ended up with is a really commercial model where whether you're talking about an app on a smart device or whether you're talking about a broadcaster, the most important thing was to keep you in that environment for the longest amount of time possible. And because that meant money in your pocket. And in order to do that, a couple of things happened. One was the use of manipulative techniques around behavioral economics, things that would just keep you scrolling or keep you listening or keep you looking for more information. The second is that that kind of environment favors sensationalism. And so you got more sensational headlines and more sensational stories, and it didn't matter whether they put them in the loop. So we ended up in a situation where nobody trusted anything and nobody believed anything at all. And that is the perfect environment for an authoritarian voice to come in and say, no way, we are the truth. So the ground for this environment really got created when we had suddenly authoritarian politicians everywhere. Anything that threatened them or they disagreed with, they would call it disinformation. That's disinformation. That's fake news. And again, we got in a situation where nobody really believed anything. And the trouble is if you were telling the truth, it's very hard to get your message to cut through all of the noise of all of the disinformation that's there. So like, you remember Out on the Edges, there was this story about when they would take a house by force, they would take any infants and they would crucify them. And that's a great, fantastic, viral story. And how do you counter that story? With the truth. The only way you can counter it is by saying, no, they didn't. And of course, no one wants to spread that story. No one wants to hear that story. They want to hear the sensationalism. They want to hear how people were victims of violence when in fact they weren't. Or they were victims of insurgent forces when in fact they weren't.
The news isn't neutral, it's a battleground. Here's media research and academic Alfie.
The media has, of course, been perhaps the key way in which governments have controlled and influenced their populations. So, mainstream media outlets to sell one kind of news, one kind of biased news to its population. Of course, the media has always played this kind of key role in methods of state control. I think what's happening now is perhaps even more concerning, where you previously, in pre-crisis Britain, we had perhaps more diverse voices in the media, but now with the GBB, you're really only seeing one brand of news, and therefore only getting one truth. So people end up with a very biased and controlled idea of the reality and the world that we're actually living in. It was, of course, many concerns and many problems, but in a way there were some positive things that, like, not all information is coming from one place, and so you'd have kind of far-right media outlets developing, and then left-wing media outlets developing to combat those, and kind of challenge the mainstream newspapers, TV stations, radio, and make sure people were questioning the validity and truth of the information they were receiving. So whilst there was the digital afforded more fake information, it also makes us suspicious and... skeptical of information and makes us question the information we're getting. And I think in pre-crisis Britain it might not have seemed great at the time, but there was something positive about that there was a lot of distrust in the media and in the different kinds of truths that were being told. Whereas now I think you're seeing a return to a more traditional and older pre-digital sense, actually, of people just trusting what they're told, and that's why we have to be here with radio stations like this to challenge those conceptions. Most citizens feel pretty hopeless, I think, and unable to fight back against these kind of huge mainstream corporations that simply... ideologies of the state. It can seem very hopeless. But I think, you know, the fact that you're out there listening, we're in here talking, shows that there is still space to combat these false truths and disinformation that's being sold to us, and it's never possible really to completely shut down, despite all the technologies that they have at their disposal, and all the financial and corporate power, and all the physical power. It's never quite possible to shut down people's desire to get to the truth and fight for their own ideologies and values, and you know, we're out here starting that task, so don't give up hope.
We'll be back soon with more of what you'll never hear on the GBB. Keep listening, keep sharing, and keep resisting.
You're listening to The Bar.
Nibbling away. On the rising darkness of a once free Britain. Hello, resistors, this is the Bug, keeping the fire of hope alive in the vacuum of today's Britain. Okay, fires don't burn in vacuum, it's a little novelty Christmas light, shaped like a flame, but it's something, it is something to cling to. Joining me, as always, is Alice. And Alice, hold the front page. Technology apparently is here to stay. There's no way around that now. Much as I'd like to go back to the 18th century and see if we can have another crack at the Industrial Revolution and get it later on this time. But new tech is creating 4,000 jobs. Count them all, 4,000 new jobs. Thanks to this new tech investment.
I mean, that's a very exciting thing if you're someone who wants to work in the tech sector, but I can only assume that this tech investment has created 4,000 jobs that will immediately be taken by robots.
Even if they're not, there'll be jobs that no one in their right sane mind will actually want to do, but that's the price of progress, I guess. And we have to embrace a ray of hope for us in this dark universe, that technology will in fact render us all obsolete, and we won't need humans at all because of the bad things that are happening now. What is the common denominator behind all of it?
I don't know, Andy, tell me.
All the bad things that are happening now, all the bad things that have ever happened, all involve human beings. They're always involved whenever anything goes wrong from the very dawn of time. And think of this, an automated Nigel Cash, surely a step up on the human Nigel Cash. You could even program it to have a tiny, tiny sliver of conscience. And if you had an automated Prime Minister, you could program it to be occasionally in the goddamn country. So that's, again, it's a step forward.
Again, I insist that there's never been a Prime Minister for me. I've never seen him, I've never heard of him. The only times I ever hear what the Prime Minister does is when nothing happens.
I mean, it has reached the point where, and I've thought this for a long time, we would be better off if the Prime Minister was a waterman. No, it would be, I think we'd all be happy with that. We'd all knew what we know and understood.
You hear him being praised for his diplomatic skills all the time, but the best mark of diplomacy is when nothing happens. So good diplomacy is indistinguishable from him doing absolutely nothing.
You are listening to The Bug. 4,000 dream jobs for everyone. All I can say, Alice, is that I'm very glad that my children studied drama at school, because that has set them up
Suspect reported in your area, potentially
the one
armed and
core skill
hostile.
they need, the ability to pretend that they are living happy and fulfilled lives, that they have jobs that are worth doing.
Control. Suspect. You. Say again. Suspect has a weapon over.
And drama teaches them to do. Crucial skills in this day and age. Of course, it's not just the jobs that are technologicalised beyond all recognition. It is also...
I had them. Where did they...
The system is now the most secure it's ever been. And, well, of course, I mean, it's so convenient, isn't it? It saves us so much time and hassle trying to exist in a kind of realm of reality. You don't need to bother. I'm sure the government has hacked into my soul.
You're still on the suspect. Over.
But at least I don't have to type "where's my nearest coffee shop" into a search engine. At least I don't have to waste anything between 8 and 12 seconds every day going online to look up how to make a bowl of muesli. And at least I'm not frittering away my precious mental energies thinking, what do I...
Terminating the search. Control.
Optic is
We're
so
an
secure,
APW.
Andy. It's more secure than a teenage girl reading a women's magazine. It's more secure than a comedian with a drinking problem. It's more secure than a young man who's just got his first motorcycle license.
Finally, before we go today, bug off to the Prime Minister, who has once again FRO'd to who knows where this week. He sure knows. I remember back in
You're good to go. Great.